Malcolm, good morning.
Good morning, Marcus. I'm disgusted with that rort.
Well, it's
bloody
ridiculous.
annoyed because, look, what's really going on here, mate, is it's not just that he's got a job that's being protected. What we're doing is Mathias Corman in the Senate often answered questions by saying we are fulfilling our global responsibilities. To hell with the global responsibilities. We have to look after Australian sovereignty. I don't need him in the OECD, bringing back OECD stuff to steal wealth from Australians. I need Australian parliamentarians to look after Australians.
Yeah, I thought that might have you fired up, and I'm glad I asked the question. You said it much better than what I did. I mean, you've dealt with this man, and it's not a personal attack. It's just the way the system's set up. And, you know, we've been talking at length this morning about the disparity, if you like, in opportunities and pay for men and women in our workforce. But, I mean, this is just beyond the pale. It really is. And, you know, $4,000 odd an hour, that's before staff, mind you. Up to 8 staff the Prime Minister is apparently providing this former senator, former finance minister with, to try and get him around the world to lobby people so he gets this prime gig with the OECD. Mind you, at the same time, he's going to receive a pretty decent politician's salary upon, you know, the fact that he's decided to pull the pin, he's retired, etc. He's still of working age. I mean, the whole thing is just, it's a joke.
Well, it's actually worse than a joke. It's theft, because the costs that you have just outlined are huge. But, Marcus, they are tiny compared to the cost to the Australian people of pushing this globalist agenda. Morrison has appeared to be against the international globalist, but the fact is his behaviours show that he is a globalist. He said on the 3rd of October 2019, after we were pushing the fact that the message about the globalists taking over, he came out trying to steal our thunder by saying he is against the unelected, unaccountable internationalist bureaucrats. He pretended to be against them. He didn't say the UN, but since then he's said that we need to give the World Health Organization, a UN body, increased powers of weapons inspectors to just go into countries. He's just collected an award from Boris Johnson as for fulfilling his global agenda.
Yeah.
And Morrison is just pushing policies. I'm tired of the Liberal and Labor and National parties pushing policies that are destroying our water in accordance with the UN, destroying our energy sector in accordance with the UN's Kyoto Protocol, destroying our property rights and farmers' rights to use their own land in accordance with the UN's Kyoto Protocol. Both these major parties have done that for 30, 40 years. Look at our tariffs. Look at that have been smashed and left our companies vulnerable.
Yeah.
Look at our the taxes that we have paid to the foreigners. Our multinational companies in this country, and 90% of the large companies in this country are owned by foreign-owned multinationals, and they pay little or no tax.
That's right.
That's fact. And then we've also got people being destroyed in the family law court system, which is the slaughterhouse of the nation. That's fact, and that came from the UN as well. We've got to start running this country for Australians and let Australians do the job instead of these bastards from overseas. It really fires me up.
All right, well, I can tell all that's missing next to the Australian flag behind the Prime Minister is a sign saying the Great Reset.
Correct. That is what is going on. And it's just a return to feudalism. We will be serfs serving the barons and the international barons. We have got one of the wealthiest countries on earth. We're the biggest exporters of energy in our gas and coal in the world,
Yep.
even greater than Middle East countries. And yet we're sitting at the crumbs. We're taking the crumbs off the table now because the wealthy corporations are just taking it. They don't pay taxes for taking our natural resources. This is ridiculous. They're stealing it, and we end up poor, and we're taking the crumbs off a rich man's table when we should be sitting at the bloody table.
All right, the Defence inquiry has wrapped up, the Brereton report. There's a whole range of issues here, Malcolm. You'd be happy to know that we are speaking to ex-Commando H on our program regularly. He's outlining things from and he's not one of the people who's been accused of any of the alleged war crimes, but he's providing us updates on welfare of fellow serving Australians, and they want to start a petition to try and get their citations kept rather than taken off them. And also the other issue, of course, is the fact the bloody War Memorial now wants to, before anything's gone through courts, before anything's been, anyone's been found guilty of anything, the War Memorial is already talking about setting aside a section of that sacred place in Ainslie in Canberra dedicated to the so-called atrocities of war in Afghanistan. I mean, it's almost as if these people have been found guilty. Don't we have a presumption of innocence here at first?
Well, of course we do, Marcus. And this is really a very difficult situation to walk through. Our country has a value that you don't murder people in cold blood. That's a value that we have to stand up for, whether it's here or overseas. But we have to be compassionate and understanding that these people were sent overseas if, first of all, they must have a trial and they must have the resources. Secondly, their generals above them are culpable, because there's no way, if this is true, there's no way the generals did not know this was going on. It's their responsibility. And I take it a step further, Marcus. John Howard came back from America, according to Alexander Downer, when Downer retired. He said that John Howard came back from America after 9/11 and walked into the cabinet and said, "We're off to Iraq." No executive council meeting, no cabinet meeting. We're just doing it on one man say-so. And apparently, I don't know this for a fact because I'm not educated on this. I haven't been briefed on it yet.
Yeah.
But apparently, Afghanistan, we did not declare war, so there were no true terms of engagement. And so what we had women and boys with landmines, with explosives taped to them, and we also had Afghanis in an American training base and an Australian training base shoot Australians and Americans within.
Yeah.
And so this is a war that's not really a war, and yet it's diabolical, very deceptive. And we went in there based upon one man. And that man later admitted, or his government later admitted, there was no evidence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Look at what we're doing with our boys in this country. So if we can't uphold murder, but at the same time we have to be compassionate, because we sent these people there to do our job, and we should have done a better job in looking after them.
Well said. A lot of people that we've spoken to, including Commando H, say that the situation over there is best described by people who've been there rather than armchair critics and even, to be honest, generals who sit in their plush leather chairs in Canberra and direct these men. Look, the issue obviously is that in relation to the enemy, it's not an international war as such. It was more a civil war, so a war within a country. So whenever they did manage to capture some of these people, Taliban and otherwise, they had to eventually, within a day or two, release them, only to be shot at again by these same people they'd just captured. I mean, the whole thing really needs a good looking at, and we need to bear in mind that it's very correct what you say, Malcolm. We don't condone outright cold-blooded killings, but at the same time, we also need to understand what went on over there, why we were there in the first place, and the other issue, of course, now comes down to mental health. And we know, and we've been told by our sources and Commando H, that so many men and young women who've served overseas are now suffering mental health issues as a result of not only their service but this inquiry as well.
Yes, well, very well said. There's a Roman general who said that no one who's been to war can understand what goes on, and people who go to war do not come back with the same mental approach. They have enormous burdens mentally and emotionally. So let's recognize that for a start. So we send them, we bend them, but we don't mend them very well in this country. But it is good to see that the people have set up a hotline for these servicemen.
Yeah.
But stripping medals from people who have earned that medal through an act of valor is just wrong. These people earned it through an act of valor. Who knows, as a result of the tortuous and tough regime of cycling in and out of Afghanistan so quickly and so often, if these people weren't under enormous pressure and they did something they shouldn't have done. That's if they were guilty. Let's assume some of them were guilty. Why should we strip the medals off these people when they earned it earned the medals for doing something to protect other Australians or protect our country or protect even Afghanistan people.
Yep.
So, and then later strip them because they've cracked under pressure. That's wrong. They were given a medal and they deserve to keep it.
All right, let's talk IR reform. We know March 21 is the date when JobKeeper ends. There are some very big concerns amongst some sectors of our community that as of next March, April, there needs to be an extension of some sort for JobKeeper. What do you make of it all?
What I make of it is that the Morrison government would yet again fiddle around the edges, not do a good job, and make it worse. The Morrison government is about building facades and not getting on with the job properly, getting back to basics. We need to rebuild our country. There are several lessons from this COVID
pandemic
virus that's hit our country. And the primary lesson is that we have destroyed our productive capacity, our manufacturing, even our agricultural sector is being destroyed by unelected international bureaucrats that our governments, Labor and Liberal, have put in place. That's the first thing. We need to restore manufacturing. Marcus, we cannot restore manufacturing and our economic sovereignty, our economic security, unless we address electricity prices. Electricity is the biggest cost component of manufacturing today, greater than labour. So we need to do a good job in reforming industrial relations, and I can talk about that in a minute, but we must do it with regard to energy prices, taxation, over-regulation from the UN. We must do it with regard to our water and other resources and infrastructure. Without that, we're just playing with this stuff. Now, you know that I've done a lot of work in protecting some miners in the Hunter Valley from exploitation under the hand of BHP and Chandler McLeod, but also the CFMEU was involved there because they agreed with the exploitation of workers and enabled it and have done nothing to protect those workers, which raises an interesting point. Could these workers sue the CFMEU because they paid dues to be protected, and the CFMEU actually, in the Hunter Valley, I must add, actually did not fulfill their responsibilities? But look at the corruption of some of the union bosses, the Health Services Union, the AWU, the Shop and Distributive Allied Union. This shows that our system is wrong. And the Hunter Valley has just brought it home to me just how corrupt our system is. We need to get back to basics because people at work feeling frustrated, hurt, are literally crippled, painful, afraid of losing their job. We are right now got people confused. If someone's working on the job and wants something clarified, they've got to go to a bloody lawyer. It's actually, that's some of the advice that the Fair Work Ombudsman is giving people. I mean, who can afford to go to court? Our system is completely smashed. I've said it before. People want to know that their job is safe. People want to know that they can be safe at work. People want to know that they're protected. They've got protection for their rights. They want to be supported and be in compliance. They want fairness. They want choice. They want simplicity, understanding. We've got to really rejig the whole of our industrial relations system because it's not serving the people. It's serving a few union bosses and a few company bosses. That's wrong. And it's serving a hell of a lot of lawyers. We've got to completely clean that out and do a good job, get back to basics to protect workers and honest employers.
Just finally, Malcolm, you've been on fire this morning. Are you going to get that jab?
That jab, mate, I will get a jab when Alan Joyce takes the jab, and I'll watch him do it. But look,
he probably will.
It's bloody ridiculous. How do we know the impact?
Well, hang on. Just back to that comment you've just made. You'll get the jab when Alan Joyce does. Well, I believe that Alan Joyce probably will get the jab because if he wants to fly overseas, which he probably will for business, on his aircraft, that's what he calls them, on my airline.
Well, he's become our national test guinea pig by the sound of it then. But maybe that's his new job. But this is disgraceful because even the International Air Transport Association, IATA, has distanced itself from Qantas's compulsory vaccination stance.
Okay.
The Prime Minister's done that too. It's certainly... How do we know the impact of these viruses which have been tested in minimal circumstances at the moment, very short term? How do we know the impact on these vaccines with other drugs, with complementary medicines? And how do we know the long-term impact? This is ridiculous. I'm not going to take the jab.
All right.
Not until it's proven.
All right, Malcolm. Great to have you on this morning. You've been on fire, and I love it. I love the passion, and thanks as always, mate. Look after yourself. We'll chat again soon. And if you catch up with Mathias, make sure you get the window seat, okay?
Mate, yeah, we'll try and make sure that we stop him bringing his OECD policies into this country. I want Australia to be Australian.